Regeneration is the possibility that all of the things that we do could bring new life to the earth. So as we are farming or as we're building buildings, the things that are a part of life are bringing new life to the world.
The science is clear. Climate change is happening, and it's happening as a result largely of land use decisions, in addition to our burning fossil fuels at rates higher than ever before.
When we burn fossil fuels, it emits CO2 into the air. My name is Eric Souter. I'm the founder and director of RegenAll, and it is a nonprofit that's focused on catalyzing regeneration across rural and urban communities.
We know that if we do nothing, and that if we don't create new models for our life and our economy, then we will suffer impacts, unfortunately, through climate change.
Lancaster is a place, it's not the typical place that you would expect to be a climate leader, and yet it has a lot of potential to be a climate leader.
The Climate Action Plan sets up a timeline for emissions reductions for the city. There's a very aggressive timeline for reducing our emissions by 80% by 2025.
When you start to look at the insects and the birds and the collapse that we're seeing in a number of different species, I think we're all coming to a conclusion that we need these forests and natural lands to support our ecosystems. And that connects back to global warming, carbon sequestration, cleaner air, and cleaner water.
We've already put so much CO2 into the atmosphere that we already have baked in a global temperature rise of at least 1.5 degrees Celsius.
I think it's important to be grieving.
I really believe that we need to expand the boundaries that we do our greenhouse gas inventories and our climate action plans from just urban centers to entire regions, to counties, to larger geographic areas.
When I started studying permaculture and had several mentors, to see how a living system can just spring up with the right knowledge, planting the right things, working with natural systems, like there's so much resiliency to tap into. I feel like the healing capacities of this planet are amazing. You know, like we really can save ourselves and we can really find balance again in the planet. I do believe that's possible, but I believe it requires a huge shift.
You have conventional agriculture, and then you have what many will call sustainable agriculture. And that's a form of agriculture that we can sustain as it is for the next dozens or hundreds or thousands of years, and potentially in perpetuity. So we're weaning ourselves off a lot of those chemicals and off of a lot of those inputs. And regenerative agriculture is this vision of being able to take the land and not just sustain what we're doing right now, but be able to repair the harm and create something that is more vibrant, more resilient, more climate friendly, more productive than it was before.
If enough people go up to the produce manager and say, hey, you know, where are you getting your food? Is it local, what you can get local? Is it using regenerative agriculture or sustainable methods, organic methods, all these questions you can ask. You never know sometimes what your effect may be by just talking about it.
One of the greatest threats to movement in America, at least, but probably globally as well, is this belief that we can only get there by focusing on my issue and no one else's. The reality is that for us to be successful, we have to understand intersectionality, that your justice is my justice. And we also have to find ways of communicating that to those who exist in the upper echelons of power and wealth, that they, although they don't see it, and it's hard to understand, they have an oppression that they're wrapped into as well. And only by freeing those who are in oppressed states, and whether that's geopolitical, economic, racial, whatever, that only through that intersectionality are we going to be successful. And so it's so important for us not to think that there's a climate activist and that there's a voter right activist. Those are integrally intertwined. And it's so important for us to understand that so much of everything is underpinned on where we stand from a literal, like, environmental standing.
For me, the two biggest issues of our time are economic inequality and climate change. And the irony too is that how they intersect, both here in the United States and globally.
I started RegenAll because of my work and background in agriculture. And it was really incredible to see farmers doing great work in cover cropping and no-till and grazing, silvopasture, where they were storing carbon in their soils. Their work is a core part of the solution for climate change.
If we each examine the role that we play and commit to making some shifts and to not be so afraid of it that we don't even jump into it, like that's the place where we need to start. You can make political change, you can make economic change, start new businesses, start new business models, invest in different things.
So we are a resource to connect people to all of the incredible organizations that are already doing this environmental work here. And then we also want to create the opportunity for people to make their households and their organizations carbon neutral. And we do that through carbon offsets. And the way it works is that you pay for projects that are here in Lancaster that sequester carbon in the same amount that you're emitting. If you are emitting 50 tons of greenhouse gases, we find projects and help them to exist here in Lancaster that are also sequestering 50 tons of greenhouse gases. So it's 1-to-1.
If we're not engaging in this deep work, then we're failing ourselves and the future.